I'm Jay Horton, and I make and sell movies. And this is Filmmakers on Amazon Prime. I mention Amazon Prime a lot. For those that don't know, back in 2006, Amazon launched a service called Amazon Unbox in the US. Later, it was renamed Amazon Video Direct, and even later than that, renamed Prime Video Direct. For our purposes, I'll just refer to it as Amazon Prime, which, BTW, Amazon doesn't like. See, they don't want independent filmmakers referring to their movies as Amazon Prime movies because that infers that you have some kind of special deal with Amazon. They ask filmmakers when marketing that they use Prime Video or hashtag Prime Video when marketing their movies. Amazon became the first and still is really the only major streaming platform to allow filmmakers to directly upload their movies without a distributor or an aggregator. See, this was huge. For the first time ever, Joe Smo Struthers in Indiana could upload his 60-minute ultra-low-budget vampire movie with little to no gatekeeping and still have it listed on the new release wall right next to Pirates of the Caribbean. And for several years, hardly anybody knew about it. I think I first stumbled upon it around 2011. I was using CreateSpace to self-distribute DVDs. I was looking to re-release a couple of my older library titles after they had finished their initial runs with distributors. See, back in those days, and basically still today, when you license a movie to a distributor, it's for 5 to 7 years, typically. And at the end of that time, you can either re-up that license or take the rights back. In most cases, indies make 95% of what they're gonna make in the first 2 to 3 years. The returns get so low after that they usually become non-existent. So it makes sense if you have the means to release yourself and make a few bucks on those older titles. So I did just that. I think it was around 2011 or 2012. I got the rights back, I discovered Amazon Prime, and put a couple movies up. They were literally making a few bucks a month. And after a little bit, I honestly kind of forgot about them. Then a year or two later, like out of nowhere, one of them started making some relatively real money. It jumped from making a few bucks a month to a few hundred. That particular title went up as high as $1,200 a month at one point that year. This little tiny movie made almost $10,000 that year alone. FYI, it was made for much, much less. For the first time ever, self-distribution seemed like a viable option. At the very least, it was a great place to put my movies after they'd finished their original license with the distributor, which was pretty much my MO all the way up through 2016. Now let me qualify something here. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm talking about very low-budget movies. Movies independently produced for well under $100,000. Most of them actually between $5,000 and $50,000, with no big stars. B and C level at best. In 2016, these types of movies were starting to become much harder to make money with through traditional distribution. Between 2005 and 2015, I worked for a few companies producing and directing these kind of features, and they were cleaning up. To this day, I regret that I didn't strike out on my own earlier. By the time I got the balls to do so, it was 2016 and the bubble was bursting. There were so many filmmakers doing it now. Back in 2005, if you told somebody you'd made a feature film for $20,000, got it distributed, made some money, they would most likely A, not believe you, or B, think it was freaking incredible. And how did you do it? Tell me how you did it. It just wasn't all that common. By 2016, equipment costs had gone down, equipment was better, editing systems were affordable, and independent movies flooded the marketplace like never before. And now, with Prime Video Direct, filmmakers had a platform to get these movies into the marketplace in a major way without the permission of a distributor. And for about another year or so, it was glorious. I forget the exact amount they were paying out, but I think it was around 15 cents an hour, and there were no real algorithmic or content restrictions. I had one older library title around that time that made almost $20,000 that year. A little tiny $4,000 shot mini DV movie that was way, way, way past its prime. It made more that year than it ever did in its initial release. But By 2017, things had started to change. More and more filmmakers were discovering Prime Video Direct, and it was no longer this little buried secret. And content, in most cases very bad content, flooded the market. And Amazon started to walk back. They lowered their rates, their algorithms started to get smart. It was catching filmmakers that were juking the system with fake good reviews and peer-to-peer review swaps. I'll get into that whole thing in a later episode. They started pulling movies that didn't adhere to their vague definition of audience expectation. I lost a couple of movies myself, and the ones that remained were making much less. And suddenly, I was kind of right back where I started. I really don't want to be one of those naysaying filmmakers like piling on about the villainous Amazon narrative. I really don't think Amazon's in the wrong. Even with all of the changes that they made, they are still the only major platform that allows us to directly upload our movies. Let that sink in for a minute. They are the only major platform that allows us to directly upload our movies. It's their world, we're just living in it. So how do we move forward? Well, first off, if you're counting solely on Amazon for the income from your projects, that's a mistake. It's hard, but you have to diversify your income stream. Seek out other platforms for your content. New ones are emerging on a daily basis. And sure, most are worthless, but eventually some of these will gain more traction. I, for one, use Filmhub. They are an aggregator. They take nothing up front and 20% off the back end. You upload there, much like you do on Amazon, and they submit your movie for you to many platforms. My projects hit an average of 5 alternate platforms a piece through Filmhub. And yes, I love airplanes, you love airplanes, airplanes are very fun. And yes, for now the returns are small, a fraction of what I'm making on Amazon alone, but over the past year that gap has started to slowly, very slowly narrow. It's not enough just to make your movie and promote it. You have to make a brand. Start a YouTube channel, do a podcast, start a Patreon. I've done all 3. And keep trying new stuff. Are you just on Facebook and not Twitter? Get both. Hate Facebook? Too bad. There's a lot of stuff going on there in advertising. Get on there, man. You're not on Instagram? Get on it. Reddit? You bet. Start a Facebook group. Join a Facebook group. But do something different. Think outside of the box. In a nutshell, that's Filmmakers on Amazon Prime. If you like this video and like to see more, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell, and don't forget to check out my Patreon at www.patreon.com/J Horton.